On this episode of Making Imagination, I had the privilege of sitting down with visual development artists Elena and Olivia Ceballos, whom you may know as Ellie Ollie Art. For those of you who may not know, visual development is the exploratory phase of production when artists are brought on to develop the look and tone of an animated feature film. As it happens, Ellie Ollie Art are some of my favorite viz dev artists online, so it was a real privilege to explore the craft of visual development through their eyes. I hope as you listen, you'll be inspired and motivated and encouraged that such incredible talent really does lie with people who are right down to earth. And I hope that if viz dev is your future path, you'll learn something here about the craft.
We started posting like on DeviantArt and places like that, like around 13, although that's just not when we were like discovered, but starting getting familiar with some of the social media sites of the day, like when we were about 16, 15 or 16, we started using Blogspot to show more of our professional work, which, you know,
because that's where all the artists in animation that we looked up to, like everyone just posted on Blogspot at the time. But yeah, so we started posting there, and I'm looking back at it now, like it's not, it's not that great, but it's just like, well, it's another way that's not like, maybe it felt a little bit more professional. And
we got found on Facebook by someone that was already following our work. And this was around, 2013? Well, that previous, 2013, we were in a local college trying to get some credits to go to SCAD, which is a big art school here in Georgia. That was our school of choice. We got in, but it was 3 weeks into SCAD. We got picked up to go work on our first project, VeggieTales for DreamWorks TV and Big Idea. And we were like, do we stay or do we go? So we were contacted again. We're like, you know what? We were just, I guess, ready to just get out there. I don't know, thought we were like that ready, but I guess someone thought we were. And we were 19 when we started. And it's not weird because we're very thankful for the opportunity, but it's quite young to become like the production designer of your first ever animation gig. But we learned a lot. But we had done some previous work before that year for Disney Toon and a few other studios. Don't want to leave that out. We were already kind of doing some work, contract work.
Okay. And so for some of that contract work, were you guys kind of reaching out to people with your portfolios or were they sort of blog stuff? Or
we're very fortunate to have, I think, people just kind of come and contact us because we never actually had to make an official portfolio until this year.
I mean, it's very possible that unless you consider it's not probably like that now, but if you add certain artists, people on Facebook as a friend or something at the time, but we weren't trying to be annoying or anything, but that's whether or not they actually looked at our work. Yeah, it's kind of a different story, but
the mutual connections we made had more eyes on our work, back in the day as opposed to now, but that the networking and we're very fortunate to have Tom Bancroft. He mentored us in our DeviantArt days. We were 16 or 17. I forgot how old we were. So he did a little recommendation for us to get to SCAD. It's I don't want to forget the people that helped, and then we were invited to CTN 2012 as the new talent. That was the first year they did that. We were the recipients of it or something. So, I don't know if it's whether it's from any of that. It could have been, but it definitely just kind of not being afraid to put ourselves out there, thinking that maybe my art's okay, but it's better now than it was then, just to be fair. But, we're just really glad people took a chance on us and, now we're here.
Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned Tom Bancroft because he is a twin brother and I have a twin. But my twin brother is so different from me. We just would not we wouldn't go into the same industry. But for the Bancroft brothers and for you guys too, it's almost like you guys have grown and developed together.
So I don't know why we decided to kind of joined together. I guess it's just because I think our sensibilities were just very close to each other too. So we kind of managed just to stay together.
And
yeah.
I think we just happened to be, few twins that like are interested in the same thing. I know there's plenty of twins out there that hate each other's guts. We always get sad about it. But I don't know. It's not something we were like, oh, let's do this together, because we would respect each other's individuals. Like, if you want to go do something else, but it's just some brain wiring thing. We're into the same thing. A blessing in disguise, maybe, but well, she's right here. It's not a disguise. Stories we've heard from other twins, like in the industry, it tends to be where there's a slight competitive nature, but we're definitely not like that with each other. So we just love each other so much.
Very good. Yeah. Well, you guys mentioned too, just being interested in the same things, and not a lot of people around you necessarily being into animation. That seems to be the story of a lot of people who go into animation. But people don't tend to find their tribe until they go out to Los Angeles or whatever. That's certainly, and that's something to which I can relate. You sort of, if that's your sort of guiding star, there are few generally around you who are sort of following that same star. And so I'd be curious to know, for you guys, were you always interested in going to animation, or was there a movie or a show that made you guys think, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do? How do I get into that?
I guess it's always a cliche thing to say, we drew a lot when we were younger. We just always liked drawing, but I guess it wasn't until we saw a movie with Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, and I was like, oh, look, we want to be an animator. But then you realize there's more to the process of animation than just actually animating pencil and paper. It was like, okay, but we would just all draw the James Baxter tutorials that we'd have on the DVDs and stuff.
Oh yeah,
we were playing
the behind the scenes. We rewatch that stuff over and over. Like, whoa, it's so cool.
But it's I guess it's kind of how it generally happens. We just drew a lot. Then we saw something wow, we can kind of use that to work in this kind of industry one day,
For perspective, we were 7 when we wanted to work in animation, and actually DreamWorks was the first place we wanted to work at, and that actually did happen. But Spirit, and of course there's been other movies we'd watch, they'd be like, oh, this is so great. But yeah, Spirit was definitely the mixture of the 2D and the 3D, we were so intrigued by. They call it the tradigital or something. I think Jeffrey coined that or something. But yeah, that was definitely our gateway to the animation world.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. My wife and I, we recently watched something related to Spirit, which made us then remember the original Spirit, which is a masterpiece, so gorgeous. When I was curious if you guys, what if you guys had worked on Spirit, kind of what some of that visual development would have looked like. Been kind of fun.
That would have been cool. Actually, we were about to, but it was it didn't go through. But that would have been cool. It was actually for that new Spirit movie, but
we did some early, for another iteration of the movie. But yeah, we just kind of,
we were still on our current job.
Yeah,
it didn't work out.
On the side, but we're like,
just a little bit, that was cool.
Okay. So one of the things that I alluded to before kind of we started the conversation was production design and visual development. Can you guys talk a little bit about how are those different?
Well, I guess I'm sure every studio and every place's process is different, but when we were on Veggie, which I will say was kind of probably a rare occurrence for that to happen for our first job. I'll put it out there, but we learned a lot. So, but production design, I guess, is essentially you kind of help establish the, on TV it was a little different because we were just kind of the main artists, and it's different from TV to feature, just depending on how many crew members you have to help you out on your process. But I guess it's essentially kind of figuring out the design and the functionality of the world. It's just it's the design, the production, the production of the play, you design the production of the TV series or the feature film.
It's definitely also more so these days, like a managerial kind of role.
And I know it's like there's like art director, which I guess is more managerial, and then production designer, I think, kind of like oversees the whole. I think it's different for each. I feel like for each project, it's depending on how many like people or like what their designated roles are called. You know, sometimes they can combine the two. You might be production designer and art director, but I almost like to see like visual development is kind of. I mean, of course, like the director themselves have a vision, and you know they give it, you know, that task to the production designer. But like I think visual development as a whole can be kind of part of that, because it's almost like you get so many people to help create many ideas to help get to the singular idea. So I think the production designer oversees all those ideas, and everyone kind of like works together to create a world. So I think it's like they kind of work in tandem. But I guess production designer is like more of somewhat of like an art lead. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, visual development is just as important, but you just have like multiple people helping out with one or different ideas.
It was a little bit different on Veggie, though. Mm-hmm. This was definitely a learning experience, I think, just because the DreamWorks TV was just starting up. So this was like the second project in production there. Mm-hmm. But for us, I don't know if I should be saying this, but we were basically doing most of the concept work. There was a few like freelancers like out there kind of doing some stuff, you know, how we kind of directed them to, but we were providing the character designs and the location designs and the turnarounds and stuff. So
we would have someone, because we worked like parallel with Canada, but we would have someone, if we didn't have enough time, or if they were kind of had their strength of like taking our concepts and turning it into like an orthograph, which is essentially like
the location.
Yeah, like the turns of like the location. So like CG can translate the designs into their world. But
we definitely did a lot more hands-on work, I think, than a production designer was supposed to do. But there's two of us, and we're like, can you do it? You know, we're like, oh, but it was fun. I'm not, you know, I'm not saying.
Of course, it depends on if the show was like more high budget or not. But you know, that's all something else in and of itself.
We learned a lot. We learned a lot of different things that we never did before on that show. So that's just probably not how production design is much now, but that was just our experience as our first time visual development. It's definitely more everyone's collaboration.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't realize VeggieTales was your first kind of real full-time gig. But I've seen the stuff you have on your website, and the backgrounds and things are really stylized, and there's definitely kind of a flavor. And I'd be curious, you know, you're walking into, at this point, VeggieTales was an established property. You know, what was it like sort of developing these things, designing these things in a world that already existed?
Well,
that's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, it's not the bad thing you're asking. It's just like, I think they definitely wanted it different from it. And when we were younger, so I'll put it in context, there's a lot of people our age who are very invested into the classic VeggieTales. It's fine. And we watched it when we were younger, a little here and there, but we weren't like ultra fans. So when we worked on it and asked to help, you know, kind of help change the look of it, you know, it wasn't something that like
we had an attachment
to put it that
so
way.
So it was like, sure, we'll redesign the characters that people knew for 20 years. But, you know, with that comes with some opinions and backlash from very passionate people. And, you know, I get it, but, you know, yeah, it was definitely, we
were just asked, you know, to do it. It's like, okay.
But it was actually, I won't say it was more daunting. I think it was more of the response that we got from it. Cause I think we were really like enjoying like redesigning them. We're like, okay, you know, because we like doing that kind of stuff.
And of course we had to have input from other sources too. So like 100% wasn't really
like what you end up seeing.
Yeah. But you know, we were satisfied with how they look. It's like, you know what, for redesign, like maybe they're not the best things in the world, but we thought it was doable. Like, let's see what people think. People were mad about colored irises and noses and more detail on them, like a real vegetable. It's like, okay, I guess we didn't think they were like hyper realistic, like the Smurfs or something.
They just had a very passionate,
yeah,
hardcore fan base that they didn't like anything that was new about it. And unfortunately, there were some people that linked our like social media to like kind of go after us. So it actually was kind of made us like cry one day at work, like, what the heck, what's going on? But I mean, you know, this is stuff we can look back at now. Like that was, you know, that was very interesting experience. But, you know, it was just very, you know, when I think about it now, it's like to take a property and redesign is kind of a big deal. And I don't think we realized like how much of a big deal that actually was. But, you know, now they got the old one back now and people were happy. So
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
Try it.
I actually didn't realize you guys were so integral in the redesign. But yeah, it can be a very interesting thing when you are, my only experience, and it's very, very limited, was working with the show Voltron. And that got a bit of it's had a few redesigns, but I was a part of one iteration of that. And yeah, people get very, very precious about what they grew up knowing and watching and loving. And which I think is a learning experience in itself.
yeah.
So then kind of what is your relationship as you guys are working to the art director versus your relationship to the director?
Okay, so I guess we can take the example of our last job. I guess we're working on a movie called Spellbound for Skydance Animation. And the director on this film was a lot more involved. She's really nice, but she was a lot more involved in like the whole process. I think maybe because she was also an artist.
Yeah, I think she was an art director in the past too. So she kind of has like, you know, directorial eyes and artistic. I mean, like more like a visual. I mean, everyone's artistic in their way, but like in the visual kind of side of it too. So she really wanted to be involved with all part of the process. But I mean, like I said, it might be different for every production. Like maybe some directors are more
kind of let you do your thing.
Yeah, more
like,
involved, and then some not. So that was just in our case for the last one. But
she really liked what we did, like I guess what we would normally post. Not for other work, but like our own stuff. So it was on this particular job, it was cool that we got to do what we naturally do. But sometimes, I guess sometimes it'd be hard for us to feel like, wait, so you want me to do this every time for every picture? Because, you know, you would do something that would be very, like maybe for us, like sporadic or like more intuitive. And then sometimes, and I think this is just like for any artist working, sometimes you overthink something and then you're like, well, can you go do the thing that you normally do? Like, oh, I thought I was, but I guess I don't know if you get like, you kind of run out of the fuel, or you just start overthinking like, well, maybe they actually want it this way, not the way that, you know, she wanted us to do it. But, you know, it's just cool to have a project for us to work on that allowed us to do what we do. And I think we have pretty cool pieces that we would like to show hopefully one day when this movie gets released. But I think it's like, well, that's cool. We got to do something a little different. And it's very inspiring to our personal work recently too, the ideas that we got to explore while we worked on that.
Yeah, and in terms of like working with the art director, and like I said, every project is different, but for the most part, like they kind of task out like your work and stuff too, and they do give us like suggestions of how to, you know, or like inspiration stuff. Like here, maybe you can kind of try to do this for this piece or that piece, and you know. I like if they especially, our last one. I mean, I think he had an artistic eye too, so it was kind of helpful to, you know, communicate that way. So they're also like they're an artist themselves, but they're more of the communicator, like the bridge between the director and the artist, the business artist,
kind of the translator too for you know, because you know sometimes
they have to oversee a lot of like CG models and other concepts and stuff too. So.
you just hope he did a good job for the director, because she was so involved. And you're like, oh wow, it's kind of a little more, you start sweating bullets a little bit in the meetings. But she was cool. But I don't think maybe not all productions will have someone that, like a director on top of your art director, like that, involved. But every project's been different so far, and it's not to say the next one will be like that.
Okay. Is it the art director who will see kind of your style and your sensibilities and select you on that? Or does the director kind of find you and be like, yo, art director, who are these people?
So yeah. I think then again, in our particular case, I think the director initially wanted us on the project. Like it was like almost like a year or so prior before we actually got on, because we were still on another job in DreamWorks TV. But so about like a year later, the art director sees everyone's sensibility and what they can do. So I think they try to, plus that from you, but it's like, it's still yourself. So like I said, there might be projects where maybe someone might ask you to do something completely out of left field, but it's okay. It's okay if that happens once in a while, but I like to assume most art directors and all that will probably use your strengths. That's the only thing I could think that's realistic. I mean, I feel like if I were an art director or something like that, I would totally utilize someone's strengths to help with their vision, We
definitely had some imposter syndrome on this movie because we were working in tandem with Spain. Their artists were like amazing. They are amazing. About to work with them again soon. But I mean, like our work, the director really wanted us to be on it, and our style and our work is just so different from theirs. Like she really enjoyed like our illustrative kind of storybook stuff that we would occasionally do. But, it helps us to kind of get an idea of like what we can improve in our own work, so it's kind of a balancing act of like you don't want to be discouraged really, but it's like, well, there's a reason why we were brought onto the project, and I guess they liked our work. So hopefully it's satisfactory enough for the help that they need.
It's so interesting to hear you guys speak so humbly, because you are super, super, super good. Like really great sensibilities, I think. Really great sensibilities. And I'm be curious to kind of know where some of those sensibilities come from. I mean, I've seen you guys do kind of a painting in the style of Ivan Earl, for instance. Kind of who are some of those artists, or where some of those projects that have sort of influenced your style and your sensibilities?
I can almost think in order, like how when we were young, I know we were definitely just loved, children's books. I mean, obviously because we were children, but I
mean, I guess there's many different artists in that thing, but we definitely liked how those things were illustrated.
For AR, AR accelerated reading in school. I don't know if they still have that now or not, but basically, you get books to get points to get pizza or something at the end of the year.
They encouraged
and we didn't, we read well and whatever. It's just that we would just get books, and it was like the children's books, like in the 6th grade, not like Harry Potter, stack and these,
like more bigger books give you more points. And I'm like,
we just got like 5 small books, and we just enjoyed like just something about like the magicalness of children's books. And like, of course there'll be different artists in these books. But I would say that was definitely our like illustration in that realm, like illustrative art, illustrators, I don't know anyone in particular, like specifically, but children's books were very influential, I think, and kind of still what we do now,
And I think as we got older into our Blogspot days, well, I was like, DeviantArt days were a little different because you saw other artists on there that you wanted to like emulate or whatever. So it was a little bit of a mixed bag, but anyways, we got a little older. I guess a lot of our inspiration were artists in the animation industry. There wasn't really one or so particular like group of people, but
I guess we can name a few. Definitely Mary Blair. I mean,
I think artist Victoria Ying.
Yeah, Victoria Ying.
She always loved her work. I mean, there's other artists too, but like because we felt like we were still in that very impressionable stage of like
kind of
trying to emulate a lot of people's styles, and like, we'll admit that, but
yeah, you see like a Nico Marley looking thing,
Yeah,
and then like you're learning, you're kind of taking a lot of different inspirations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you almost have to just to find out where your voice is, kind of lean. Yeah, for sure.
And we weren't hiding it, we'd say Nico Marley inspired, like we weren't trying to be like, oh, this is ours. But
we kind of got a little bit more older. We're interested in like impressionistic artists,
like classical paintings,
or stuff like that. And I don't know, I just feel like we went through a lot of weird phases, but then now I feel like it's just kind of a mix of like
whatever we see,
what we learn,
and
just try to.
We take inspiration. We don't rip it off, but we're just into so many different kinds of styles of art. It might even be like illustration art. A lot of it sometimes been like architectural, or like be a CG thing, or sculpture, and obviously animation, and just
even like looking at like photographers and stuff. You just get a lot of different kind of ideas and stuff that you want to put in your own work. So it's like now it's not really one particular kind of influence. It's like we kind of take what we learn and then we're soaking it, but a lot of other like kinds of artists and stuff out there. So
I don't think there's no shame in being inspired by a lot of people. I mean, I'm not saying this for everyone. I feel like maybe sometimes artists kind of latch onto one type of thing, and it's fine, or some people don't like to just look at anyone at all. But I mean, we've always just soaked up whatever it is, like no barriers of what we like in terms of what's out there. And I'm not saying that's prevalent much in our work, but we definitely have experimented over the years with different, if you see in our portfolio, there'd be different phases of looks and things that kind of change over the years, just like, I guess, anyone that's kind of soaking in new things. But yeah, I mean, like now it's just anything goes.
No, that's really great. I think that makes a lot of sense too. Particularly, I recently heard Tom Moore say something similar about his influences when he was doing Secret of Kells and things. He said he tries to, pull influences from as many different kinds of sources as possible. And some of the sources he was naming was like, why is that a source of inspiration for this movie? But somehow it came in and was really, really helpful for. So that's really interesting, I think. In some ways it makes sense. I think just looking at the beautiful artwork that you guys do create, that it would make sense that you're not necessarily fixed on one artist that you guys really like and trying to be like, because I think the result has been something of a unique look and a unique style, and something that I think is memorable. One of the things that you guys do really well is your sense of scope. When you guys create a landscape or a setting, often there is just a great sense of scope. And for me personally, I think that's such an impressive thing to put into an image. Also strikes me as really difficult to do. So where does that come from? Where does your sense of scope come from? And how do you guys put that into your work?
Make big picture, small person.
There's a formula to this. I mean,
well, I never thought of scope being, that's kind of very interesting. Thank you. Because everyone says something a little bit different that you didn't think of, like about your work, because you're used to seeing your own stuff all the time. But I never realized that about our work, but I do notice it, subconsciously. I guess we do incorporate a lot of that. I know sometimes it could feel like a cheat to just make a background and then just to add like a character. But I think we really try to involve like mood and feeling small, I guess, where you're at. We were just kind of talking about this. We talk about it sometimes, but like the memories that we have of places we've been to, kind of that either feel like strange or weird. Like when you're little, you have like these kind of, you remember, or at least for us anyway, like these memories of how something felt. Like for us, that was very prominent growing up. I don't know if it's like anxiety or something that made things like more impressionable on us, but like remember feeling like this on a cloudy day. You were walking here and something, it felt like this, it looked like this. So I think we try to capture that a lot in the scope. We definitely have a lot of like memories of how things felt for us, especially when we were younger. And we would try to, I guess, trying to capture that somehow, like, because you feel kind of small, you know, like everything was kind of big around you. You didn't understand it or something. And
yeah, I guess it's just primarily based off mood.
Yeah, mood.
You know, I guess because it's like sometimes if you have like a character more up close or you're focusing on the character, it's like, oh, it's a more, you know, character-centric piece. But it's like you almost want to feel what's around the character too. And I think that's kind of how we like to go about our pieces. You know, it's like you can tell the character is feeling something, but like the mood around it is also like a character. I don't know. Maybe it's a little cheesy to
I mean,
we've
never done anything revolutionary in that. There's plenty of people I think who paint, in our opinion, scope well or better than we do, but maybe we do it differently. You know, like you said, you can't, you look at your stuff all the time. You don't really know what's that much different about your work. But yeah, like she said, you know, mood and like the surroundings can be like a character in itself. It's like, it's not just there to be the placeholder or like just the thing that the character is in. It's just like, bam, I remember feeling like I was out here on a beach on a cloudy day with some sun coming through, you know, something kind of just whatever feeling you want to subscribe to that kind of moment, you know. And basically, I think a lot of our emotions and how we remember things or when we go out to places really just are more better explained with scope than if it wasn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Fascinating. I mean, it sounds like, which again, doesn't surprise me. But you guys are, in a sense, sort of putting yourselves onto the page, sort of bringing, I guess that's what artists do.
Yeah.
Bring sort of yourself and your lens and how you see the world.
Mm-hmm. We're very emotional people. So, I mean, you know.
Great artist. That leads into my next question, which I suppose you've sort of just answered, but your sense of color is also astounding.
Thank you.
And you guys use it, what seems to be pretty deliberately. And I've seen instances of you guys sort of taking the same image and playing with the different color tones and moods and things. Again, you sort of answered this already, but you know, is that some of that instinctual, or is some of that sort of deliberate?
I guess it's kind of both, but in a sense of like, you know, there's also like more possibilities with the image too. It's like you don't really just see it. I mean, you could have the intent of like, well, I wanted to get this kind of mood across, which is fine. And I think sometimes it does stay like that if there's, you know, no other kind of bigger option in terms of the mood. But like sometimes you can change up color, you know, and it's like as simple as it is, it's like, oh, it can kind of change the mood a lot, or it could just be we're indecisive too sometimes. But
I feel like, you know, when we're adjusting images, you know, that I'm just, I guess, speaking from our experience, that like there's just so many good options, you know, and to settle on one thing just feels kind of like you're not showing just other possibilities, you know. Whether people care about it or not is one thing, but for us it's like, oh, it's just cool, you know, as you're doing a hue adjustments or overlays or whatever, it's like, oh man, this is kind of cool, and we just think it's cool to show. But yeah, like if it's instinctual, it's kind of weird. It's like we're deliberate but instinctual at the same time.
Yeah,
like we're deliberate in our instinctualness, if that makes sense. Like because we never I mean, you know, we're not the only ones, but we weren't trained or we didn't learn anything. We just kind of go with what we felt like. You know, we do have some like real world relatable, like, you know, like some paintings we'd do would be more like in the real world. It's just experimentation too that we enjoy doing. We just enjoy experimentation and not afraid to do it. And I think sometimes that might close maybe people sometimes trying something because maybe they're afraid to experiment. And, you know, maybe it comes out more deliberate than just trying to feel it out. We like to just try to feel out stuff, because we're just not very organized people. Maybe it's just the way our brain works too. Just, some people are a lot more honed in. They know exactly what they want. We'll have an idea, but that idea changes too. So it's just the way we choose to work. And I guess just whatever looks cool, we're okay with it. You know what I mean? Like that we're okay with showing a different version of something that didn't mean to be the actual version, and thankfully, people find that cool to see too, just kind of a thought process.
When you're working on a movie or for a series, visual development is sort of just where you get to sort of explore things. Do you find ever, is there generally kind of a lot of creative freedom in that time, or do you start out with kind of like, stay in this sort of realm when you're designing? I guess what I'm asking is, like kind of character design, it's literally a blank slate, or is it, where you can have so many different iterations and you need to kind of pivot and move in a different direction. Does that happen much in visual development, or like, actually, let's go in this direction?
Yeah, I know there's generally like a blue sky stage where like you can kind of explore like, some part of the story, right? And it's not really established, or like maybe it's an early part of a script or something, or storyboards, but a lot of like maybe the design is just up in the air. So they get all the artists just to kind of design just whatever they think at the top of their head to design a certain space or even characters or whatnot. And then I'm sure like, and I'm not really sure always how the script process goes, but like, I'm sure there's something that's been established more in a concrete way, then the designers will sort of, kind of meld their ideas together or kind of dwindle down a certain idea that works with the director generally. So it's like, yeah, there's kind of more exploratory stuff. And then most of the time, it's like, this is especially like in feature, TV has to go a little bit faster and had to make more quick decisions. And I don't think it can be like too precious. I think even TV has blue sky stages too, but generally it's like, the review process is much quicker, So I almost feel like you probably don't get as much freedom as you would do in a feature. I think with any other kind of studio, there's always like other input from the top or something that will kind of help. I mean, I don't think it's hurt the movie that we're on, because I think it looks lovely, but I'm sure for other films and stuff, you could either help or hurt, the final design sense, it just kind of depends on like what someone wants.
I would also add to that, I think like our experience on the last film, we were asked to kind of be more like idea people.
Yeah.
So I not say that will be every experience we'll have, but that it was very interesting, difference from our last job. You get an assignment, kind of one way to do things, whatever, but the director really wanted us to come up with some concepts or ideas of how something felt and looks. Obviously there'd be input, but a lot of the stuff we did I think there's some ideas that really, I think, hopefully will stay in the movie. But that was a very rare probably experience to have like a little bit more like creative freedom and actually kind of use that, like, that wasn't necessarily visualized well enough in the story. And that's what a lot of people do for visual development, obviously, but I would say that our last experience was definitely a cool one where we got to kind of help out more with blue sky actually during production. And it felt like blue sky, to some degree, but.
Yeah, that kind of brings me a little bit into my next question. Looking at your concept art for Ron's Gone Wrong, it looks great, of course. But it reminds me, I guess, just kind of in general, the visual development stage can be kind of stylized as you sort of are exploring different options. I mean, look at the work of Claire Keane on, Frozen 1, for instance, or whatever. It's completely not going to look like that. And in some ways, I suppose even Mary Blair dealt with that in her day. She's developing is not necessarily what the finished animation is going to look like. So, when you guys watch a project that you've worked on, like Ron's Gone Wrong or something, Do you still see a lot of your influence or your ideas or whatever piece you had to play in the final product? If the leap is as great as from digital painting to three-dimensional figures?
I think for that particular project, we kind of we were just asked to do like a few pieces. So I think when we saw the film, like in some way, like you can kind of see it, but I think there was a lot of other people involved to help get to that end result too. So I can't really say that was like really our fingerprint, you know. But I guess with something like Veggie had more of our, like I said, there was other input from outside sources too. So it wasn't, had to kind of make things look a certain way or fit into a certain aesthetic. But like maybe compared to that, like that has more like our fingerprint on it than maybe Ron's Gone Wrong, or, it could be vice versa for different projects that we worked on. So it's like, I guess you can sometimes, and sometimes not as much, but I think you just help, to help develop the visual process to get the end result that, the director wants.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting thing. It's not necessarily a negative thing. I look at, Lou Romano's work on The Incredibles, and I think, what? It's gorgeous, but it's very, very abstract.
Yeah.
And that's certainly something that's not necessarily going to be translated to the 3D. So yeah, it's just an interesting, aspect of film production. Coming back to some of what you guys have talked about, just in your own artwork, there is simultaneously a whimsy, but also like a gravitas in the work that you guys do. And I was going to ask if that was instinctual or if there were philosophies driving some of what you design. It sounds like you guys are coming very much from kind of emotion-based design philosophy of what do we remember this feeling like, and how should this feel? Does that kind of lean into even sort of, I mean, it's hard to pick out why you draw the way you draw in general. There is instinct. But I guess, is there a more conscious philosophy beyond what you've described already? Or is it mostly like, this is what we feel and what we felt, and here's what we're communicating?
I know we definitely like this. Not that we believe in this per se, because I mean, we love and wish to be able to do more technical work, like a lot more, like architectural type of stuff. But we really like the approach of like less is more kind of thing for some pictures. I mean, it's not that I don't prefer detailed pieces. I mean, we like different kinds of art, so I don't always think like more, this is just our thing, and it's not better or worse, but I don't think more detailed things make something better, and I think sometimes just letting the eye rest and kind of, figure out the rest of the pieces, like I said, not to sound cheesy again, but like with feelings and emotion, I think that's sometimes kind of fills in the blanks.
Yeah.
You can kind of interpret things or see things how you want to without putting everything out there. And I'm not sure if we're just saying this because we can't do technical things, but there's definitely like techniques and things that I want to try to do. But yeah, I mean, we I think purposely are drawn to drawing the things that we do because that's what we like to do. We tend to be kind of quick, and the quickness of something tends to feel more right in terms of just like jotting out the idea, or because we like to move on to the next thing, but we're more about, just kind of laying it out of what we feel in that moment, like, because if we do too much detail, it tends to lose what the intention of what we wanted to do initially. I find it sometimes if I start overworking something, I'm like, it just lost what I was feeling about it. Now it's become a piece that I have to feel like I have to put detail in, and it's like I'm putting too much work for people to read into than it really was intended for. So everyone's different. Some people really like the way, they draw and do things and that kind of more technical detail, but we definitely lean towards just doing more simplistic, and you can kind of gather out the rest, yeah, that's just what we like doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. You guys are based out of Georgia. Is that right?
Yes. We just moved back last July.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Moved back out here. Yeah. We were in California for a little bit. But yeah, now we're back here.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask, if that had presented any challenges for, I mean, animation is so global. I mean, you already mentioned working with a studio in Spain. I don't know. You guys did spend time in California, but I don't know. Has it been much different being so far away from? I mean, Georgia has its own, I guess, in Atlanta, but being so far away from kind of the hub of animation in the United States.
Well, I guess at our last job, it's like, we worked, met up with a few people and then went home. But like in terms of that kind of atmosphere of it, I think with everyone working from home now, I guess it's like everyone's on the same page, I think. And it's like, and we kind of talked about, like, we kind of miss the studio so you can, like, kind of interact with people. I mean, we're kind of introverts anyway. So, sometimes we like our space too, but like there's that kind of a positive about it, or the camaraderie. But I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell really. But I think when we came back home here, like, it feels okay, to be here. It's not like LA is just the mega hub, where you have to move there. I don't think people have to just move there to work in animation now. So I think that all in all, like, if you kind of just want the certain aspects of it, or the culture and stuff, it's like, fine, you can go over there. But I think, you're able to get it out pretty equally, in your own home to some extent.
Okay. And what would you tell a newcomer to visual development, someone who's really interested and wants to move into that? Do you guys have any kind of advice or pointers, or?
Put your work out there, and definitely try to, and I don't mean this in like a weird way, but like, try to kind of see what other people are doing out there and the people that are in the industry. And it's like, you want to work the best you can, but like, see the kind of stuff that people are doing. You don't have to copy do it to you, but like, just, even the quality or what kind of things that are needed for production kind of helps. See what other people are doing, how they're kind of doing it. And, I guess ask for help if you're brave enough to ask any kind of critique and stuff. Also, probably not be annoying to other industry professionals, I mean, I know people mean well when they try to do that kind of thing, but yeah, just be careful, but also be nice, because if you're online, things can go around. So
yeah, in the day of online, just being online, just kind of be professional, that's kind of a thing we want to imagine saying 10 years ago, but that's definitely professionalism goes a long way, and your attitude. So, do a good job and be a good artist.
Last question. Your Instagram indicates that you guys are fans of Disney's Meet the Robinsons. Is there a project that you guys would have just loved to work on, and kind of what does Meet the Robinsons mean to you?
Oh man, I'm sure we've said this a million times somewhere else, but in terms of why Meet the Robinsons, it's just one of those rare things that, like, we were going through kind of a hard time in middle school. And the movie was playing one day. They were like playing it somewhere in one of the classrooms, I think to like the smaller kids or something. And we would kind of mill around like the school because we would get picked up last. And the movie was on, and we got invested in watching, like, it was, interesting, but we didn't actually watch all of it till we watched it again, like maybe a few weeks later on TV. And for whatever reason, like, there was a certain reason at the time, like, that was personal to us, that when we rewatched the movie, it felt right, like what we were going through at the time. And we had an emotional response to it. It was just kind of one of those like weird things, like why, I don't know, that movie or whatever, but it really...
I guess it's like a right place, right time, but I mean, it always had a sweet message to it too. So I was like, oh, but we're thinking like, they made a TV series one day. That'd be so like, I mean, there's other projects I'm sure like, hope maybe that will say like, oh man, this is something I really want to work on. But that's like a fan dream anyway. But
it's gotten close, but not yet. Basically, we're like, oh shoot, but it meant something to us. But yes, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. They said, hey, let's do a Meet the Robinsons thing. We'd be like, yeah. It's so weird. I don't know. Most people don't understand like why Meet the Robinsons. It's just so random, but it meant something to us at a particular time in our life, and we don't like a fan of many different things. So we really just pour our energy into that fan art type of thing. And a lot of people have enjoyed it, and like, wow, this unexpected, but I like it, and like that's cool. And we've seen a lot more people, I think, kind of start getting into the fandom a little bit because of the art. So it's like, oh, that's cool. So thank you to everyone who made the movie, and William Joyce and Steve Anderson and everyone. So
awesome. Well, yeah, I think you guys. I've said it before. I think you guys are really, really good. It's incredible because it sounds like from your own artistic perspective, there's so much further you'd like to go. So I think you guys are so young. It's going to be really, really cool to see what you guys do in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Like, holy cow, I can't even imagine like where you'll be.
There's expectations, but we're just going to try to do the best we can, live our life and draw along the way,
Yeah.
Part of a little bit of our life. But yeah, thank you so much for having us on here.
Yeah.